Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You are now tuned into the podcast, Journey of a Healed Success Stepper. I'm Dr. Dorina Shine, and I am grateful that you are here with me today. So come on in. Thank you for being here. We're going to get right into the topic today because I do have another private program to do today. So welcome and thank you so much for being here. The mission of Journey of a Healed Success Stepper is to talk to people about the game of life, how the game of life gets played, who plays the game, how the processes work within the gameplay. Okay? So I want to talk today specifically about the game of judgment. You know, you think of judgment and you try to define it as being, something that others do to you, causing you to create an assumption of what others think or expect about you. It's amazing because as we grow through this world, we're going to see a lot of judgment, especially when we make mistakes, when we have embarrassing moments, when we are vulnerable. Okay? So we've been talking about this all this week. The concepts, I want to leave 5 concepts with you relating to judgment, the judgment of others. Someone asked me, what do you think about the people who judge you? Listen, I have been judged all of my life. So I don't really have a concern or a expectation of someone who would be a judger to me, because I take these 5 concepts and I use them diligently. I have used them. And that's one thing about being a survivor. When you are a success stepper, you're not going to take things so close to the heart. You're just going to expect it. Okay? So let me give you these 5 points of view that I want you to consider about people who are judging. They're in judgment mode. They've called you up. They said, well, I heard da-da-da-da-da, or they see you fall, make a mistake, and then they shun you, or they make you feel inferior in some type of way. Let me tell you what they're doing. That is a game. That is a game play that the enemy does. The enemy does that because the enemy does not want you to see your value, your worth. And when the game of life start playing like that, here's what you got to do. You have to create a platform for yourself to be able to tell your story, because the final step that we're going to talk about today is going to bring it all together. So when people start to judge you, they'll be the one that's going to draw traffic to you. The things that they think is going to be your worst case scenario will become your best resource. And then finally, it's going to create a understanding for others to validate what they've said about you. But you yourself have a responsibility in this measure. So these are the 5 steps we're going to talk about. The first step is pay attention to the person who's judging. What are they doing with their lives? Are they a positive person on a regular basis? Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Journey of a Healed Success Stepper. Dr. Dorina Shine here. And are they intelligent? Are they truthful? Or are they chaotic? Are they frustrated with life? Are they isolated? Are they depressed? You take the intention of the individual sharing the information about the judgment, and that kind of puts a balance to how much of a characteristic you would buy into an individual when they bring certain judgment concepts about another person. Okay? Like, for example, say in my case, after, going into the institution, I started observing people. And for those of you who are new to the podcast here, I'm Dorina Shine. I have a past history of being incarcerated. I was incarcerated for 18 months and then 41 days. And in that institutionalization, I observed so much. First and foremost, out of 3,000 women, I only knew one. So it showed I wasn't from the streets. So regardless of how people consumed the concept of looking at my mistake that I made, I only knew one person in the whole field of, or the compound of 999 women. I only knew one. And it was myself and another person. Okay? They know who they are. But anyway, I owed nothing to the streets. So judgment, to me, institutionalized, I could care less what these people are thinking about me. As long as you and I don't have a situation or a circumstance to deal with, or we deal with them primarily right then and there, then there's nothing to talk about, really. It's okay. So the investment in the person, the intention of the person who's bringing the judgment, you got to pay attention to. And then the second thing is you got to pay attention to you, the person who's being judged. Because if you have a low value or low worth or low quality, then that is what's going to happen. So you're going to either buy into what they're judging you on and seeking to validate to whoever brought it to you, so that you can then in turn find your you have to fight for your independence or something. You have to fight for it. You really don't. You take what you are willing to accept. When you're willing to accept it, that makes the validation of the judgment of the person, whoever it was that brought it, authentic or untrue. And then after you have invested in your acceptance, now you want to look at the value of who you are internally. This is the person being judged. Is it true? Is it not? Because if it is true, then you might have some work to do. And if it's not true, then you balance. So there's really nothing that you need to say regarding what another person brought that was untrue, unjust, unreal, defamatory, scandalizing, any of that. And so this is why you have a good, easy, breezy life. You don't have debates and arguments and chaos all the time around you unless someone else is bringing it around you. That's different. Then you have to argue and debate to keep your peace. You have to argue to have your peace in this type of judgment at points when people bring things to you. But after you invest the value in who you are, that validates the acceptance of whether the judgment is true or false. And then the judger is, in your eye, now your opposition. And so you got to look at that person like, oh, now we move to this step. Security versus insecurity. How secure is this person in their lives? Are they really validating life? Or have they always had concepts of chaos that they've brought to others or demanded from others? Now, mind you, it could be a child that could defame you as a guardian, or someone who's moving up the, ladder and being exposed to, more and more people. And so the judgment character upon that child is based and validated upon how they feel, how secure they really are. And if they're dealing with a lot of internal demons, if they're dealing with a lot of dark nights of their soul, they won't understand it until they come out of it. Because they're using people as crutches. And a lot of people in judgment will use you as a crutch in order to feel good or superior about who they are while they're in the midst of their hell. Misery loves company. So when you look at the person and you see how secure or insecure they are, that will determine whether you're going to be validated. Even to the third party, the person who heard the judgment of you coming from the other person. So now what happens is there's a heaven on earth point of view that comes out of judgment of others. So I was asked the question, how did I feel about the judgment of others while I was walking on my path? You know, the embarrassment, everything that happened, right? And if you want to know what happened, join Dr. Dorina Shine on YouTube, and you can go to the playlist, Emotional Healing, Journey of a Healed Success Stepper, Emotional Healing 12 Steps, and you'll see in the 12 steps exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, for this video, I want to now go to the final part, and this is the conclusion. This is where the third party, the judger, and the judgee, the person they're judging, are all connected. Okay? What takes place here is a phenomenal thing, because if the judger lied in some way on the judgee, or defamed somewhere, or made a mistruth, or did not value the relationship of even who they were because of their own insecurities, it's going to show here in the conclusion. Because the conclusion is going to bring about an area in life where people will say the third party will say, well, wait a minute. If you say that this person was such a horrible mother, if you say this person never showed up in life, how is it that when I did my research on this person and I looked it up and I viewed them and I critiqued them? See, one thing about a conclusion is you make it for yourself. And that's something that the judgee does not deem that will happen. They'll just assume that they can tell a story and it's supposed to be, oh, really? That's horrible. And then once they realize that the person has done their homework and concluded through factual data, through evidence, through factual support, through acts of expectation, and podcasting yourself, videoing your achievements, constantly being in social media's presence as someone who is being judged is the best thing you can do. I've had podcasting videos or vlogging or VODing, whatever you want to call it, since, oh my God, 2009, 2010. And I went back on one of the platforms and I looked at the validation of who my co-host expected me to look like in front of people. But the reality is the conclusion. And that is the part, as I write my ebook on my journey of a healed success stepper, I start to validate that the reality is the value in who I am must show up even with the slanderous expectation. When you go to court, a lot of people feel that, because the plaintiff said that you did this, the defendant is the guilty one automatically. But when the story comes out, I've seen many a times where in the conclusion, based on the facts and the evidence that was the preponderance of evidence, sometimes when the plaintiff brings the defendant to court, the defendant ends up winning on a counter suit because the conclusion brings it all together. The truth is going to be the truth, no matter how bad a person who judges you wants you to look to the world. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you for liking and sharing this. I'm seeing the views, guys. Beautiful. Thank you. And I also believe, as a content creator who has been in this position, who has been monetized by different platforms, and who monetizes and sponsors myself, okay? I noticed that social media is so different today. And a lot of time, judgment and validation also comes from the content in which is exposed, how people are speaking on their platforms, as well as viewers. Now, I know back in the day when I started, I can click on a YouTube channel and before I know it, it would be like 100 people in a chat or 200 people in a chat or 25 people here, there, whatever. And then after that, you would hit thousands of people. But when the algorithm realizes that people are trying to get monetized, they're wanting to get paid. This is a job that pays you. Now what happens is the algorithm has gotten smarter. They understand that people are doing things for clickbaits, for likes, views, and they think that their story is going to be the multi-million-dollar event that happens in their lives. And I hope that that does happen if they are so wishing to have that happen. But on the flip side of it, if you look at judgment and you look at individuals who slander people just to get a click of a view, and they know internally, they know deep down inside that they are slandering this person who they're telling people lies about. Now we have a serious situation. And that's what I want you to think about. When you think about judgment and you think about when someone slanders you, I just did a success energy reading over on Facebook earlier that says, think wisely just because you're an adult. You know what I'm saying? Don't allow someone to trigger you into an unnecessary practice of something that you don't believe that exists within your value system. So that's my answer to the question, what do I believe about judgment on the journey? And believe me, there's going to be some people who are going to judge you, even those, your peers, your counterparts, people who know you, people who don't know you. They're not going to take their time away from what they already validate within themselves. So if they validate low vibrational frequency, they're only going to just be there to accept the information, to feed off of it, to get some type of nourishment from it. But when it comes down to the conclusion and the basis of it all, now it's a whole nother story. But it's just waking you up to show you what type of world we live in and why it is important to validate who you are. Make sure you have a security measure within yourself to where you set boundaries, to where no matter what comes or goes from another person's point of view about you, you're going to be able to validate whether it's true or whether it's not. And that's what you need to do in this field of social media, influencing content. And also, we talked about yesterday the embarrassment and the vulnerability, how much of this information you're willing to share. Well, most of my life has already transitioned into the success part now, so I can talk about things because it didn't just happen yesterday. But for those who are vulnerable and in a position and want to get on this social media platform, trust and know you have enemies. You have people stalking. You have people embracing the trauma. And you must be very careful of how much you share. So I thank you so much for being here. You've been listening to Journey of a Healed Success Stepper, Dr. Dorina Shine. If you would like more of these videos, join me on all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, Facebook. And also, if you are interested in a universal leadership course, we have the courses available. We also have Emotional Healing Solutions, where we talk about the 12 steps of emotions and how these emotions can really trigger, addictions and chaos and all of that. And then we also have the Scales to Success LLC business consultation services that are available for those who want to take that initial step and believe in themselves by going into entrepreneurship for themselves. Also, I am working on a global initiative, the GIPA. It is the Global Intervention and Prevention Act of 2025, where we're talking about those who have been covertly prescribed or AKA laced, and they have came back from the situation and they remembered the event, they remember certain pieces of the event, and now we're working with Congress very closely to impact a bill to help assist those who may find themselves there, to have a voice so they're not alone. Okay? So if you would like to know any of that information, just email shinedorina@gmail.com. That's SHINEDORINA@gmail.com. Also, do your research on everything, and so that way you'll have a little more understanding of what you're getting into when it comes down to sharing information, either online, one-on-one, or in a seminar or lectural basis. All right, thank you so much, and we will see you next time.